Most gardeners who grow vertically think they're already ahead of the game, and they are, but only partially. Because there's a whole layer of advantages, techniques, and trade-offs that almost nobody in the gardening world talks about. Not the basic train your tomatoes up a trellis advice you've already heard. We're talking about the hidden mechanics of vertical growing, the microclimates, the structural choices, the watering quirks, and the biological benefits that can completely transform what you harvest and how healthy your plants stay. If you've been growing vertically and feeling like something's still off, or if you're just starting out and want to do it right from day one, these 7 secrets are exactly what you need. Welcome to Cultiva, let's get into it. Secret 1: better airflow dramatically reduces disease. Here's something most gardeners never connect. The way you position your plants in space has a direct impact on how sick they get. When plants are crowded together at ground level or sprawling across the soil, air gets trapped between the leaves, moisture lingers. Humidity builds up in pockets around the foliage, and that warm, damp environment is exactly where fungal diseases like powdery mildew, early blight, and botrytis thrive. When you train plants vertically, you open up the canopy, leaves are separated. Wind and air can move between them freely. After rain or irrigation, foliage dries out significantly faster, and that drying time is critical. Most fungal spores need leaf surfaces to stay wet for several hours to successfully germinate and infect. Cut that window down, and you cut your disease pressure dramatically. This is especially important for crops like cucumbers, squash, beans, and tomatoes, all of which are highly susceptible to fungal problems when air circulation is poor. Growers who switch these crops to vertical systems often report far fewer fungal outbreaks without changing anything else. No extra spraying, no different fertilizer, just better airflow. The practical move here is simple: don't just go vertical, go open. Avoid training vines so tightly together that the canopy closes back up. Space your plants along the trellis with intention. Give each stem room to breathe. That airflow is doing invisible work for you every single day. Secret 2: pruning the bottom foliage changes everything. Most gardeners know to prune, but very few understand where pruning makes the biggest difference in a vertical system. The answer is the bottom. Specifically, removing the lower 12 inches of foliage on any vining crop is one of the highest return actions you can take in a vertical garden. Here, why it matters on 2 levels. First, energy. Every leaf on a plant is a consumer as well as a producer. Lower leaves, especially older ones near the base, are often shaded by upper growth, meaning they're receiving very little light and producing very little energy through photosynthesis. But the plant still sends resources to maintain them. When you remove those lower leaves, the plant redirects that energy upward toward actively growing stems, flowers, and fruit. You often see a noticeable acceleration in upper growth after a good lower pruning. Second, disease prevention. Soil contains fungal spores, bacteria, and pathogens naturally. When it rains or when you water, soil particles splash upward onto the lowest leaves, and that's one of the primary ways diseases like early blight spread on tomatoes. Remove that bottom foliage, and you eliminate the bridge between the soil and your plant. For tomatoes, cucumbers, and pole beans, aim to keep the bottom foot of the main stem completely clear. Do this progressively as the plant grows, don't strip it all at once when it's young. Make it a weekly habit during the growing season and you'll see cleaner, more productive plants from start to finish. Secret 3: the cooler microclimate underneath is prime growing space. This one is genuinely underused, and it's essentially free additional growing space that most vertical gardeners ignore completely. When you build a trellis, arch, or tower in your garden, the structure creates shade on the north or lower side. That shaded zone has a noticeably cooler temperature and higher ambient humidity than the open ground around it, and that microclimate is perfect for an entirely different category of crops. Lettuce, spinach, arugula, cilantro, parsley, and most salad herbs prefer exactly these conditions. They bolt, meaning they go to seed and become bitter quickly when exposed to full sun and heat. By tucking them beneath your vertical structures, you can extend their productive season by weeks, sometimes by a full month or more, depending on your climate. The strategy is to think of your vertical garden as a two-story system. The upper level running up the trellis hosts your heat-loving, sun-hungry climbers, cucumbers, beans, indeterminate tomatoes, squash. The lower level in the shaded footprint beneath hosts your cool season crops. One growing space, two entirely different growing environments, both being used simultaneously. This is especially valuable in small gardens where space is a genuine constraint. You're not just growing up, you're layering your production intelligently. Plan this from the start when you position your structures and orient them so the shade falls where you want it. Even a single cattle panel arch over a raised bed can give you meaningful shade space underneath for herbs all summer long. Secret 4. Structure choice determines long-term success. Here is where a lot of vertical gardens fail, not because of the plants, but because of the infrastructure holding them up. A cucumber vine in full production, loaded with fruit, is heavy. A squash plant climbing a trellis in midsummer is heavy. And when those plants are also holding water weight after a rain, the load on your structure becomes significant. Flimsy bamboo stakes, lightweight wire mesh, and thin wooden frames are frequently used because they're cheap and easy to find. But they're not rated for the load. They sag, they lean, they snap, often right when your crop is at its peak. Losing a fully grown cucumber trellis to structural failure in August is both frustrating and preventable. The better investments are cattle panels, welded wire arches, heavy-gauge galvanized conduit, or purpose-built metal trellises. Cattle panels in particular, those rigid wire grids typically used for livestock, are extraordinarily versatile for gardeners. They're strong enough to support the heaviest crops, they last decades with minimal maintenance, they can be bent into arches or stood upright, and their cost per year of use is extremely low. The common mistake is buying cheap structures thinking you'll upgrade later. In practice, most gardeners keep using what they have until it fails. And then they lose a crop along with it. Invest in your infrastructure once, do it properly, and it pays back many seasons over. Think of your trellis system as a permanent fixture of the garden, not a seasonal accessory. Secret 5. Indeterminate varieties produce far more when trained vertically. Not all plants benefit equally from vertical training. The varieties that truly transform when grown this way are indeterminate types, meaning they continue growing, flowering, and producing fruit continuously throughout the season rather than setting all their fruit at once and stopping. Indeterminate tomatoes are the classic example. A determinate tomato variety produces one main flush and finishes. An indeterminate variety, properly trained up a stake or string system, will keep growing upward and setting new fruit clusters every few weeks for the entire season. Vertical training keeps the plant organized, keeps fruit accessible, and allows you to manage the canopy so light penetrates throughout the plant. The yield difference is substantial. Indeterminate tomatoes trained vertically in a well-managed system can produce 2 to 3 times the fruit of the same variety left to sprawl. The same logic applies to climbing beans, cucumbers, and winter squash, all of which have indeterminate or long-season growth habits that vertical structure supports perfectly. There's also a significant practical benefit: harvesting becomes easy. Fruit hanging at eye level on a trellis is fast to spot, easy to reach, and less likely to be missed and left to overripen. Overripe fruit left on the plant signals the plant to slow down production. Consistent, easy harvesting keeps the plant in active production mode longer. The vertical system and the variety type work together, choose the right plants, and the results are noticeably better. Secret 6. Vertical systems dry out unevenly and demand smarter watering. This is the one secret that catches vertical gardeners off guard most often, particularly those who have experience with traditional ground-level beds. Vertical growing changes the way water behaves in your garden in ways that aren't immediately obvious. First, plants trained vertically have more of their root zone exposed to air along the sides of raised beds or containers, which increases evaporation. Second, the soil directly beneath a dense overhead canopy of trained vines can stay surprisingly dry. The foliage intercepts rainfall and irrigation before it reaches the ground. Third, if you're watering from overhead, water hits the upper canopy and runs off rather than soaking down to the root zone evenly. The solution is targeted watering. Drip irrigation lines or soaker hoses placed at the base of plants, delivering water directly to the soil and roots without wetting foliage. This also helps with disease control, looping back to Secret 1, wet leaves invite fungal problems. Combine drip irrigation with a layer of mulch at the base to retain that moisture once it's there. Nutrition follows the same logic. Vertical systems, especially those with intensive production, leach nutrients faster due to more frequent watering. Light, consistent feeding, rather than heavy, infrequent doses, keeps nutrient levels stable without burning roots or contributing to runoff. Every 2 weeks during the growing season with a balanced liquid feed is a strong baseline for most vertical crops. Secret 7, vertical structures transform the ecology and aesthetics of a garden. The final secret isn't about yield or disease, it's about what vertical growing does to the entire garden environment and how it feels to spend time in it. These are benefits that don't show up in a harvest log but that genuinely matter for how you interact with your garden and what it does for the surrounding ecosystem. Vertical structures with flowering vines, beans, cucumbers, nasturtiums trained upward act as beacons for pollinators. Flowers positioned at standing height are more visible to bees and other beneficial insects than flowers near the ground. Gardens with strong vertical elements consistently support more active pollinator traffic, which improves fruit set across everything growing nearby. Aesthetically, vertical growing transforms a flat garden bed into something with dimension and presence. An arch of climbing beans, a wall of trained cucumbers, a tower of indeterminate tomatoes, these aren't just functional. They make the garden feel designed and intentional. In small, outdoor spaces, well-placed vertical elements create a sense of privacy, draw the eye upward, and make the space feel significantly larger than it measures on paper. That lived-in quality of a well-designed garden is something you can create deliberately, and vertical structure is one of the most powerful tools for doing it. 7 secrets: better airflow, strategic pruning, stacked microclimates, durable infrastructure, the right varieties, smart watering, and the ecological and aesthetic power of going vertical. None of these are complicated, all of them are actionable starting today. Pick one that applies to where you are in your garden right now and put it into practice this season. You'll see the difference. If this gave you something useful, leave a comment telling us which secret you're going to try first. We read every one. And if you want more practical, no-fluff growing guides like this one, subscribe to Cultiva. There's a lot more to come.